Hi, Hattie. Thank you for joining me. Would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, thank you for having me. I am Hattie Godfrey. I'm an artist and researcher, currently based in Belfast, but I am from London.
Great. And would you tell me a little bit about your work? I suppose at the moment, can't get into the studio to meet you and see it in person, so it'd be really great just to get a sense of it.
Yeah, so in the last few years, I've been mainly exploring themes of care, and so kind of in relation to that, also themes of health, illness, bodies, and family as well. I primarily have been using my own body as the medium that I kind of keep returning back to. I think for a really long time, I've made sense of thoughts, kind of feelings and experiences by articulating them through my body. So I keep returning to the use of my own body in my work. But I also use wider performance methods, interactive installation, writing, and film. So it kind of manifests itself in lots of different ways. But I use these various different mediums to develop alternate languages through which I can kind of express episodes of trauma or suffering, both physical and psychological. So I grew up with various different chronic illnesses, and I've had various conditions as well develop, both physical and psychological, during adulthood as well. So I kind of explore those experiences and try and find alternate languages through those mediums to kind of express, explore, unpack, restage, reclaim those experiences sometimes as well, through the development and kind of use of these alternate languages. I think an important part of that process as well of developing alternate languages is, for me, the use of metaphor and play. It's something that I keep returning to, and by using things like metaphor, particularly in relation to like animal behavior, I keep using animal behavior as well. They kind of allow me to like shape and push and reorder memories and experiences and truths that I have. So I also begin to play with fiction and reality there as well, reshaping my memories by using various different metaphors. A good example of this is in 2018, I did a series of works which was based around the formation of a reading group for cows, for bored cows. And so I did this for 6 months, and I held monthly reading group meetings for them. And it was kind of a way of reshaping the previous 6 months that I had spent waiting in hospital waiting rooms due to a chronic condition that I have. So the work kind of reflected themes of control, consent, agency, and the management of bodies by institutions, both by healthcare professionals, but also agricultural institutions as well. And also, I mean, the work was autobiographical for a good chunk of time, but recently, since having done my master's in psychological science, I have kind of been encouraged myself to start incorporating other people's experiences into my work. So with the kind of hope that I can create more multi-layered representations. So I'm currently doing a collaborative project with various different participants, exploring the psychological impact of living with long-term and chronic health conditions.
Okay, that's quite a lot to take in. I was just wondering if you could maybe give some shape to that. Tell me how it manifests itself, how it looks.
Yeah, so it's quite heavy conceptually. So going kind of stripping it back and saying, what does this thing look like? The concepts most commonly kind of seem to manifest themselves as constructed immersive environments. So installations in which performative actions, which quite often are durational as well, so take place over a long period of time, they take place within that constructed environment. Aesthetically, like every single element of these environments are very specific and controlled. And I think that's a really important part of the work. I think that's how I'm able to reclaim experiences that I've had where I felt very out of control by restaging them in incredibly controlled environments. The design, the construction of costumes, of every element is really intricate and involves like various different skills like woodwork, textiles, metalwork, and things like that, just so that I can have control over absolutely everything. The spaces are also, they're quite influenced by institutional spaces, so schools, hospitals, prisons. There's kind of like a uncanny feeling there, like that it feels familiar, but also completely unfamiliar. There's also kind of references there to Hollywood staging, kitsch kind of interior design, things like that. So there's quite a few different things at play there.
No, it sounds very process driven or process engaged anyway. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the processes you go through?
Yeah, so I kind of don't see each work as existing alone. They're all part of kind of a larger tableau. I mean, if you like returning to the idea of like alternate languages, I kind of think of each work as like a letter in the alphabet. And when those letters are put together, they can be used to describe experiences. So that's kind of how I like conceptualize all the works together. And then, yeah, I guess process-wise, between each work, despite the fact that I see them as part of each other, part of the same kind of process, between each works, there are quite long periods of research and development. I tend to work with recurring images or phrases or objects that I've noticed, sometimes in my drawings, sometimes in writing, sometimes even kind of in dreams, or just like things that I cannot get out of my head. And once I notice that it's been reoccurring and it becomes kind of overwhelming, I use research to kind of try and make sense of why am I obsessed with this? What, if any, importance does it hold? So I try and kind of exhaust every avenue. The etymology of like the word, if it's a phrase, you know, or if it's a word, the history of a particular shape, completely exhaust it, become obsessed with it, and continue to kind of, shape and push it until it's at its limit. And when it reaches its limit, it does this thing that I kind of like to refer to as jumping the page. So it starts living, and it's something that starts to exist around us and kind of come to life in the form of sets, costumes, gestures. So it's constructed and its significance is beginning to be like unpacked, sometimes understood, although not always, but always exhausted. A good example, I mean, I'm currently working on a piece called Confusing Caring Curing. And it began when I noticed that I kept referring to bus stops in my journal. And through various pieces of research and stuff, I began to understand the bus stop was a representative of the period of time where one seeks a diagnosis or non-diagnosis for various symptoms, you know, sitting, waiting in a space designed to shelter you, but characterized by kind of discomfort and uncertainty. But it took a long time to get to that. So it's a very obsessive process.
Sounds so before I can actually, the studio's in a situation where I can come in and get to meet you in person and see your work. Is there anywhere where I can follow what you're doing?
Yeah, so I have a website, hattiegodfrey.com, and that has kind of examples of different pieces of work I've done in the past and details of statements and things like that, which say a little bit more about my approach and about my practice. I'm also quite active on social media. I don't have a particularly, it's not a sort of gallery approach, so you don't have every single piece documented or anything like that, but you can, on Instagram, kind of tune into what I am up to at that time. And I do post a few things about the process that I'm currently doing with the work.
Well, thank you very much. That's been, it's been really great actually speaking to you. Look forward to meeting you in the studio in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.